Well, hello, friends. It is a beautiful sunny Monday in Calgary. I just got back from a walk, and I'm hot. I'm excited for it to cool down just a little. It's starting to get there, but yeah. I wanted to do some FAQs today, so I thought I would respond to a couple questions. I have them here in my notes. I'm just going to pull them up. So I've been really focusing on money. I've shared this, I don't know how many times and in how many different venues, but I've been really working on my money relationship, my money journey, my financial life. You know, if I take out all of the personal growth and positive word pieces, basically I've been trying to get my financial life in order because I'm tired I was super tired of the reality that I had. I wasn't willing to keep living in that way. And as I've been going through the journey, I've been hearing from more folks as well. So I wanted to answer a few questions that have come up. These are really great questions. I grouped them together today related to like getting started on your financial journey. So if that is you, welcome. You are in great company. So first question, I always love this question and a version of this question. And the answer that I'm going to give to this question is, I've mentioned in the podcast before, it's a bit contrary to what some call them financial experts. I use the term loosely, will give you. But the question is, should I pay off debt first or start saving money? You could also like take different versions of this question. Should I start paying off debt or invest? Do I save or invest? You know, what does that look like? So historically what I have seen, definitely have heard this my whole life as well. And what I've seen as the general advice is get rid of your debt because it's costing you money, and then start saving, then start investing. But basically the idea being like, be responsible. If you have especially credit card debt, get rid of that first because it's so expensive, and then start saving money. My answer is completely contrary to that. Well, pretty contrary to that. What I would say, so this is what I did for myself. Anytime you're looking at your financial life, you need to pay attention to like, what is going to work for you, right? So whatever the advice is or whatever the insights are, whatever people's stories that they share, it's like, what is going to work for you? Because your financial situation is completely unique to you. Nobody can ever give you like a really clear insight as to how you should move forward. So I just want to preface that before I dive into the answer. So the way that I looked at it, and it took some time to get there. So in my, 18, 19, 20s, even into my just beginning my 30s. My 30s is when I started to like really question a lot of things and change things and be like, yo, this is bullshit. I'm not going to do that. But up until that point, when I would listen to different experts, they would say, pay off your credit card debt first. And as part of that, don't spend more than you earn. And then you can start saving money and investing and doing all those wonderful things. So cool. I tried really hard to do that. But it's really fucking hard to do that if you are always on the back foot. And what I mean by that is if your income is on the lower end, even if it's on the higher end, because as I've been learning, just going to stretch a little here. As I've been learning, there are folks that are making $80,000, $90,000 a year, $200,000 a year, $1 million a year that are still paycheck to paycheck. So when I learned that, and I'd heard that, but then I kept reading different books and it kept coming up and I was like, oh my God, what? Like how? How could you bring in, say, $20,000 a month and still be living paycheck to paycheck? Like that blew my friggin' mind. And then I got my promotion about a year ago, and I was making $63,000 Canadian So for my US friends who are listening, that's Canadian dollars. Was making $63,000 as my annual salary. And I remember thinking like, okay, this is going to like make a big difference. And it wasn't making the difference that I thought. I thought, I'd need a couple months to catch up, but like, cool, once I'm caught up, then I'm good. And I'll start like knocking into these financial goals like a fucking boss. And I didn't. And that's a whole different episode. But when it comes to like, where do you start? What I realized was that I was on this god-awful hamster wheel of trying to pay off debt, somehow trying to spend less when I didn't actually have less to spend. I wasn't living an extravagant lifestyle, like I feel like car insurance, and I was driving a Pontiac Sunfire at the time, was not extravagant. I know to some folks that might seem like really extravagant, but like, trust me when I say it was not. I wasn't doing crazy things with my money, but like there was always, I love that phrase of like more month than at the end of my money. And so trying to be in that space and like this absurd idea of like, we'll just cut back on your spending and pay off your debt. I'm like, okay, but I'm not getting any headway. And that was so demoralizing for me. Something would pop up. I'd have made all this headway on like credit card balance, and then something would happen and I would go right back to the beginning. And I was just like, fuck, like I was getting nowhere. So finally I decided for me that I was going to do something different. I was going to say, to hell with all of the experts and all of their bullshit advice, because it hasn't worked. And I'm tired of living this way, and I'm going to try something different. So I actually went contrary to that and went, okay, how much money could I set aside from every paycheck that doesn't decimate me, because that's really important, but like, what could I do that would allow me to gain a little bit of ground, even though it would technically slow down any repayment that I'm making, but like, what would that look like? And I think I started with like maybe $25 a paycheck. I think I might have started with even less than that. It might have been $25 a month, like just once a month I put that in. But I started small and I started building a little savings account. And I gotta tell you, it was so unbelievably exciting to finally watch money grow. And it wasn't fast. If you think about it, $25 a month is like $200 and $300 a year. Like, it's not a lot, right? But it was doing something for me that $300 toward, say, a credit card balance never could. It was showing me what was possible, and it was creating a space of abundance in my life. And I remember when I started sharing with, friends, or even if I'd be at the bank, they're like, what's with this like savings account? I'm like, well, that's, setting aside money. And people would look at me like I was fucking nuts. They're like, you're in debt and you're trying to build a savings account. And they didn't understand the importance of like being able to see money grow. Yes, like don't stop paying debt down, but like, it is so much less exciting to see your credit card balance go down a little bit, that extra, say, $25 in a month, versus watching a savings account grow. So when it comes to the question of like, do I pay off debt first or start saving money? I don't think it's an either or. I think it's a yes and. So have a look at your finances, see what's possible. If all you can do is like $1 a month or $5 a month, I'm sure you've heard this before, and your brain probably calculates it out and goes, well, like $1 a month, so I'm saving $12 a year. What is even the point? The point is actually not about the amount. The point is you are changing your energetic frequency around your money. That is the point. So what you start to do is you start to see tangible traction. So have a look, see what's possible. Make sure, if there's any bit that I want to like really stress on, it's this. It's don't over allocate. So let's say, for example, you make $1,000 a month. I need easy math. Let's say you make $1,000 a month. You have $700 of that $1,000 in a month is like gone to just groceries and rent and car payments and insurance and like whatever, right? The living stuff. $300 of that, let me correct. $700 is like rent, loan repayments, car payments, insurance, like those static things, bills that happen. The other $300 needs to be stretched between, say, your groceries, going out for a movie, gas for your car, because we still live in an era we have fuel-powered cars. You know, the things that stretch and ebb and flow. So if out of that $300 you also need to do debt repayment, all of a sudden that like becomes quite small, right? It gets really tight. So for you, $25 a month might be just way more than you could possibly fathom. So start with $5 a month or $2 a month or whatever. Some amount that you feel at peace about, you're happy to send to a savings account, knowing that it is energetically creating an abundance frequency for you. So that's what I would say. Yeah. Second question I have here. What debt should I pay off first? I love questions about debt. I love them. I don't even phrase it as debt. Like in my life, I call it leveraged money. Debt is obviously the easier term that like is readily known. In terms of like what debt should I pay off first? Again, like your own unique financial situation takes precedence. So have a look at what is happening in your life. I can't tell you. I don't know your financial reality. Like I don't know what you're looking at. There are different ways that I looked at debt. So for myself, what I was told, again, was like, start with credit card debt. And here's where we're in contrary again. Start with credit card debt and start with the card that has the highest interest amount, right? So whatever has the highest amount of interest, the highest balance, start that one first. And I was like, okay. And then they said, then you work on like loans and like line of credits and whatever else, mortgages, blah, 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 blah. What I did for me was, instead of looking at like what was, now I'm trying to remember, did I do interest or did I do balance? I think I did balance, actually. I think is what I did. So the highest interest rate wasn't necessarily the one that had the highest balance, but I started with the one that had the smallest balance. And all of this is because I wanted to create traction. So let's say, for example, I had a credit card that had like $500 owing on it and another one that had $5,000 owing on it and another one that had like $20,000 owing on it. I don't think ever in my life I had 3 credit cards, but let's just say that for the sake of this example. Like the advice was to start on the bigger one, work that way down. But I needed the win. So what I started doing, I looked at all of the debt in my life, and at that time I had student loans and all different kinds of things, and went, what was the one that I could pay off the quickest because it was the smallest amount, whether it was the highest interest or not. So I think at the time I started with my student loan. There wasn't a lot left. There was maybe, call it $1,400. But that, like in the payment plan, was still going to take me a year or 2 years, whatever that payment plan was, to get rid of. So I started with that one first. It didn't do a huge win in terms of like, you can go at it with the logic of like, how does that help your credit score? And what does that do for blah, 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 blah? Like how much interest did you save and whatever. I honestly didn't care about any of that. What I was looking at was, how can I get a win in the bucket? And that was a tangible way that I could get a win in. I didn't get penalized for paying early, which is great. Do pay attention if you have debt in your life that does have like penalties for paying early. I don't know that many exist anymore, but it is possible. So there was no penalty for paying early, and it took me maybe 6 months, 8 months, I can't remember exactly, once I actually like set my intention to pay that off, to make it go away entirely. I had money that just like would randomly show up. Randomly, like $700 would show up. I'd be like, what the hell? No idea where it came from. It might have been like a GST rebate or whatever. But like, I intentionally set money towards it, and all of a sudden it was paid off way early. And I remember celebrating the hell out of that. Celebrate the fuck out of it. When you have those financial wins, celebrate like you just won the $60 million lottery. Honest to goodness, we pass it off. We're like, cool, next. No, stop, celebrate. Anchor that shit in. Make sure you know, like, this feels fucking amazing. And like, keep building that up, because you want to help embody that state of that growing abundance in your life, so that your subconscious and everything is like, oh, hey, when we did this last time, she really liked it. Let's do that again, because like, we want to give her the things that she's after, right? That's what your subconscious is doing all the time, by the way. FYI. So I did that first, and then I started working my way around things. And eventually I got to like being more intentional with the financial tools available, which is a whole different episode. But I started with like, I had a good look at what I had for leveraged money and went, where can I go to get a win? So I started with that one. It fired me up. I went off to the next one, which I can't remember what it was, and like eventually started ticking my way down the boxes. And it took some time. And this is where you hear that, like, you know, getting the ball rolling kind of idea. It took time. It wasn't fast. It's the biggest thing when it comes to finances, is that like, we are sold into this perception that like, oh, I'm going to get this huge windfall and then it's just going to make it all go away. FYI, that doesn't often happen. So like, cool, and that's fine. But it really sucks if that's the reality you're waiting for. So that's my thoughts on that. Have a look at like your own financial picture and think about like, where can I get a win in? And be very mindful of your ego. Your ego will want to say, let's go after that big one, because then when we get that big one done, like, I'm going to be proud of myself, right? Of course you're going to be proud of yourself. But like, if you're going after the big one instead of ticking off the little easy ones along the way, you're in that hamster wheel. So get off the flicking hamster wheel. Get out of there. It's for hamsters. You focus on like, where can you get some wins in the bucket? That's what I would say. Love this question. I feel so broke. How do I even start? I can't afford even $10 a month, Amy. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I love this question. And you're probably like, why would you love this question? I love this question for a bunch of reasons, but the one that is really clear in my brain is, what is sitting underneath this question is a desire for something better. There's not an excuse in here. You know, like we could be really vicious and say, well, there is an excuse of like, I can't even afford or whatever, but like, there isn't. If you actually pay attention to the question, I feel so broke, how do I even start? The desire that is in that question says, I want to know how to go, but I have no idea how to get there. You have to have a certain level of awareness of your current reality and what is possible for you to even be asking that question. And if you're asking that question, let the angels sing. That is an amazing space to be, because you are already opening up to the reality that you desire to have. If you are saying, I'm too broke, I can't start. I'm too broke, it's not possible. I'm too broke, this is ridiculous. You're not open. You're not open. You're not ready for like whatever that could look like. You're not in a place that you're able to receive any kind of insight and willingness to take action, right? But phrasing the question of like, I feel so broke, how do I even start? You're already trying to like crack open the door and you're like, yo, give me more, baby. How do I get there? So I love that question. But to answer the actual question, as opposed to just talking about why I love the question so much, how do I even start? So there's a billion ways that you can get started. Probably more. What I would likely recommend as sort of like a carte blanche, because I don't know your unique situation. But what I would probably recommend as like a carte blanche is to start paying attention to those feelings. And I know it sounds so like, that's it? I just pay attention to it? Yeah, pay attention to it. Your feelings are what are giving you like great indicators of what's going on in your beliefs. And the truth is, in order to create the financial reality that you're desiring, you need to shift things in your subconscious. If you already had beliefs that supported the reality that you want, you would have the reality that you want. So by purely starting to ask the question and pay attention to what's going on, you realize, okay, there are things here that are not serving me. What are those things? So that I can start to heal them or relearn them or let go of them or whatever, right? So how do you start if you truly have no money to set aside? This is something that really got in my way for a lot of years. You know, you'd hear people say like, well, you got to invest in yourself. It's like, well, that's cool. But like, yo, homie, I can't buy milk. So I'm all for investing in myself, but like, what am I supposed to do? Right? And then I'd get well, go to your library. You can get books for free. And I was like, right. Except that I forget that there are deadlines and now I'm late and now that free book actually costs me money. So if you truly have no additional like cash money to put out, amazing. That's totally fine. You don't need it to start. You have you and you have time. And every single person on the planet has the exact same amount of time. I've said this before. I really started focusing on reading after I heard, we've heard Oprah talk about books. She has her whole book club, for crying out loud. But I was listening to one of her Super Soul sessions or something in a podcast when I was at work, when I used to be a merchandiser, and she's talking about having read this book and blah, blah, blah. And my brain suddenly went, if Oprah fucking Winfrey can make time to read a book, I can get over my damn self and read a book. And it was as simple as that for me. My brain was just like, well, of course. Okay. And she wasn't the only one. Like Warren Buffett talks about reading books and I'm not great with famous people's names. Like any successful person that you know will talk about reading books. I guarantee you they're busy, right? If they can find time to read books, you can find time to read books. So read books. There are libraries. I walked into a bank in downtown Calgary. It was like their investor bank or something. I can't remember exactly. But like I just remember walking in and in the waiting room, they had a freaking book library. You could like legit borrow a book. It was just there. I was like, what? What is this magic? I don't remember what the rules were, but like whatever, you could borrow books. There are lots of places you could borrow books. If you have a friend that has a book that you're like, I would really love to read that, why not ask your friend if you can borrow that book? This is my favorite. This is how I actually read most of my books. So look into your local library to see if they have a library app. When I was looking at like, when people are talking about like, we can get it from the library, I'm like, yeah, but I struggle to remember to like get certain things done. I guarantee you I'm going to forget a deadline for a book and then I'm going to like not get it there in time and wasn't willing to do that. But as I was, researching libraries or whatever, I found out that our city library has a library app. Oh, here's the cool thing. I get to borrow a book for 3 weeks. If there's a book that I want to read that like has a whole bunch of holds on it, whatever, I put my name on the list and when the book becomes available, it just pops up in my app. Hey, I'm ready to borrow. You could even deliver it later. If it like pops up and it's like, hey, I'm ready to borrow. You're like, yeah, but I'm reading these other 2 books right now. You can like put a thing that says like deliver later and you can set the time for however long you want that to be. And here's the most amazing part. You get to A, see your progress, B, know the due date, and C, when it's due, it just disappears out of your app. If you forget to return it, you're not charged. It just disappears. It's amazing. So if you don't have money to like put towards anything, you're going, I can't afford to like, buy books or whatever. Amazing. There's like, find other ways. As soon as you start asking the question of like, how do I even start? Yes. Keep holding on to the question. How can I start? Where do I start? What is available for me? What am I available for? Am I willing to try this? Can I try this for like 10 days, right? Ask yourself lots of questions like that. That's a big thing. And then, of course, like listen to different podcast episodes and like whatever, all the kinds of things. YouTube videos. I've been watching lots of YouTube videos. I'm on a track for cars lately, but like I watched a lot of financial videos as well. Yeah, that's how I would say to start. And the last point I'll make on this before I grab the last question, because how much time do we got left for recording? Oh, we got a little bit of time. Oh, you've got time with me yet. What was the thing I was going to say? Oh yeah. When you're reading books and you're listening to podcasts and you're watching videos and you're doing all of the things and you're just taking things in, know that until you have some assets that you could put towards something, it is okay just to take in information. That is okay. I know that like there's some great books that I've read that have like activities and things to do, and like different, like create a budget and do blah, 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 blah things. And like, great, if you're in a place to do that, because they are very helpful. But like also be okay if you're just like, I legit just have 10 minutes a day to read and that is all that I have. There is no extra time. The other 23 hours and 50 minutes of the day are wholly spoken for. Cool. Then just read for those 10 minutes a day. And it's okay if you're not like taking action on things right away. Do take action on them when you can, right? Because if you're just reading stuff and you're like, Amy, my life isn't changing. Well, obviously, because you still have to take action. But just give yourself some grace. That's all I want to say about that. Okay. Last question. I want to improve my financial life. How and where do I start? What an amazing question. Future Amy would have this lovely little plug of like, hey, check out this da-da-da-da-da thing. Present Amy doesn't have that currently. But what I would say of like, how and where do I start? It's very similar to like the answer to the previous question. Start paying, like reading, taking in information, learning, really paying attention to like the information that you want to learn. Go find out and go learn it. And like allow yourself to take baby steps. I have been working on understanding investing better. I have like less than a pinky's worth of knowledge, right? I don't have that much knowledge, but I have so much more knowledge than I did a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I started asking questions and I would be like, can you tell me what this means? And, you know, and my boyfriend who has more insight and knowledge in the stock market just in general, and it was commonly conversed at the dinner table with his family and like with different family members and stuff, and he's been investing for years. He could give me explanations and I was able to be like, if he would get too far in, I'm like, whoa, you've lost me. Simple. Give me the very like super duper, super simple version. And then he'd be like, it's basically da 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 da. Cool. That's all I need to know for today. Because if you give me any more, you're going to lose me. This needs to integrate. So start asking questions. Ask people around you. Pay attention to the kind of things. I've started just like listening to people. It's fascinating what you'll learn when you're just listening to people. But yeah, like pay attention to the conversations. Be mindful. This is a good thing I would say. This is sort of general life thoughts, but like very good for your financial life. Be mindful of what and who you are listening to. If you are listening to somebody who has a very negative view of the world, and that is not the reality that you want to create, why are you listening to that person? Right? If they're not an expert on someone's trying to give you like all the stuff on Tesla and convince you that you should not invest because blah, 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 blah. Like go do your research, check your sources, right? Like pay attention to information that resonates with you. I think that's a big thing. Everybody has their own unique beliefs, their own unique experience in the world, your own unique financial footprint. So different thoughts and insights and advice and perspectives and learnings are going to land with everybody differently. So I would say start with that. Start by asking questions. And a really simple thing that you can do, especially if you're like, fuck, I wish I could just not spend so much money. I'm actually starting to trial this myself right now. So I had this idea this morning. I've just started a little cheat sheet. I haven't actually even started, other than like I tried it for a couple of things that I put onto my money out list this week. Pay attention to what you're spending money on and how it makes you feel. So one of the big things I think that happens when we get into, especially consumer debt in particular, is that we just mindlessly spend money, right? Whatever, I'll buy this t-shirt. It's $10. No big deal. I want that book. I'll just get it ordered. You know, it could be here. You're ordering over Amazon. It could be here overnight. I have thoughts on Amazon. But like, you know, pay attention to where you're sending your money out. And then the next part of that is like, pay attention to how you feel after. Do you feel good for having sent that money out in that way or no? And like, check in a couple of times on that. So this took some time for me to understand in terms of like what this would look like in my own reality. But one of the examples would be like, let's say, for example, clothes. I almost never buy clothes now, which is, I actually get so many free shirts. It's kind of ridiculous. Like just from work and stuff and I have a rule. I set this rule long before I ever met Dave. I can't even remember, but basically I was like, I had a certain number of hangers in my closet and I was buying clothes and I was doing things and I was like, yo, I am not going to buy more hangers. So if I ever am in a place where I have more shirts than I have hangers, something else has to go first because I don't need all of this. In fact, like I could easily argue that like what's in my closet is probably more than I need. And I have so much less than most. And that's not like, yay me, I can do with less than you. It's just, it was a decision I made for myself. So when I would buy things, and I'll use clothes as an example because it's easy and tangible, especially from the women out there who like to wear clothes, not because women are like, bleh, just, yeah, moving along. If you're buying clothes, think about like, so how did you feel at the moment that you purchased it? How did you feel when you got it home? How did you feel the first time you wore it? How do you feel about it maybe a week later or 2 weeks later or a month later? Pay attention to those things and use those as like data points to give you more insight into like, what am I sending my money out to? So what I realized was I was buying clothes that I thought would give me a certain feeling, and they kind of did for a moment, but like not long term. And the other thing was that like I wasn't feeling great in my clothes, right? And that was more to do with just like body weight, but I just wasn't feeling great in them. And so I would keep trying to find something that would give me that feeling of like, oh yeah, I'm feeling great, or maybe this will make me feel abundant. Maybe this will make me feel like a total boss. Maybe this will make me feel. I was always chasing this feeling. And what I began to realize was that none of these things were ever creating this lasting feeling. And so then I started going like, well, why would I even bother buying it then? You know, like that just seems silly. If I'm spending money on this thing and I'm hoping it's going to do X, Y, Z, but it's not getting me close. And in fact, it's actually getting me further away from my goals. Well, that's just kind of silly. So, but in order to get there, you have to start asking questions and start thinking about it. Whew, that's the end of my list of questions for today. I trust that you found some insight out of there. If you like this episode, please, of course, share it out. If you have questions that you'd like to surface with me for a future episode, please send them to me via Instagram. You'll find me at I Dare to Begin, which is just all words. So letter I, dare to begin, all words, all one word, no numbers, no special characters. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for hanging out with me today. It's been a pleasure to share. I wish you a wonderful day and look forward to seeing you increase your financial reality. Bye, friends.